Okay, we'll be getting started soon. If everybody could find their seats. Good afternoon and welcome. Good afternoon. I might need the goat. You know, yet Viga's threatening to hand me a screaming goat to get everyone's attention. Welcome. Come on in, find your seats. Thank you. I don't even need it. I don't even need it. I want to say thank you for all coming out to the awards ceremony at our 20th biennial. We're here to honor so many amazing people in our field. It has been an honor and a privilege to put this together. So many of those who are going to be awarded have been a part of my own journey in community psychology, and I'm so grateful for the many years of watching and witnessing their work, their contributions to the field, the ways in which they've shaped my understanding of the field and our work. One of those individuals is Chris Keys, who will be doing our first introduction today. Chris Keys is really a giant in our work. Every time he opens his mouth, it's a master lesson in who we are and what we do. His kindness in support of even me in my most radical and ridiculous moments has been just a treasure, and he's always someone that has made me feel welcome. I know that he will make all of you feel welcome as he introduces our first award for this afternoon, Chris Keys.
I love radical and ridiculous, so it's very easy to love Erica. So today I'm honored to acknowledge one of our great researchers and someone who is getting the SCRA Distinguished Contribution to Theory and Research Award this year, Susan McMahon. So you wanna come up? So here's a nifty award. So now Susan had to decide whether to stand up here or not while I laud her. So you try and see if you can kind of capture how red her face gets. Susan McMahon's distinguished research has helped underserved youth, fostered recommendations for systemic changes in schools, and provided national and international recognition to issues in community psychology. Her early community-engaged research in the Chicago Public Schools was transformative and yielded benefits for underserved, at-risk Black and Latinx students, their teachers, their low-income schools, and the greater Chicago community. Her later research revealed the high frequency of teacher-directed violence. And in that area, she is a pioneer and has had substantial impact on research, practice, and policy. Dr. McMahon has engaged with various communities by addressing important social issues with underserved populations, such as violence, achievement, mental health, and disabilities. She's published in excellent journals like the American Psychologist, Psychological Bulletin, and our own American Journal of Community Psychology. Her distinguished career has resulted in almost 100 peer-reviewed publications, policy publications, a book, 16 invited chapters, and I think this is an underestimate because it probably doesn't count the presentations here, but 243 paper presentations. But who's counting? Her work is highly cited with almost 12,000 citations in Google Scholar, or listed by Google Scholar, that highlights the relevance and impact of her research. Dr. McMahon was appointed to the APA Task Force on Classroom Violence Against Teachers in 2008, and in 2019, based on her work with the APA Initial Task Force, she was asked to chair the APA Task Force on Violence Against Educators and School Personnel. She led an interdisciplinary, diverse group of researchers from UCLA, Berkeley, UNC Chapel Hill, Ohio State, Rutgers, and the Center for Justice Innovation. She also collaborated with 5 national partners: the American Federation of Teachers, the National Association of Social Workers, the National Education Association, and the School Social Work Association of America. So you talk about a bridge builder. And this has enabled her to lead the conduct of national multi-informant mixed method survey of about 30,000 school personnel and stakeholders in pre-K through 12th grade in schools across 3 time points. Teachers, administrators, school psychologists, social workers, and staff members from all 50 states and Puerto Rico took part. Based on this work, Dr. McMahon led a congressional briefing that contributed to funded legislation in school mental health and educator training. This highly visible interdisciplinary work, 749 million impressions. I'm not quite sure what an impression is, but but that's still a hell of a lot of them, right? Yeah. From 1,400 articles, her work generated that level of press attention. Brings national recognition, not only to Susan, but to our field, and advances research practice and policy related to understanding and preventing violence against educators. Really, Susan's work has made violence against educators a thing that we're becoming more aware of, that was kind of hidden for a long, long time. Her recent American Psychologist publication features her distinguished theory and research. In her spare time, Dr. McMahon has been committed to SCRA, having served as president, regional national network coordinator, and chair of the Council of Educational Programs. She served SCRA in leadership roles alongside engaging in a distinguished research career, and she's most deserving of this award. Now, let's hear more about her research. Her presentation today is entitled Understanding and Addressing Violence Against School Personnel Through National Research, Collaboration, and Policy. Susan McMahon.
Thank you, Chris, for that very kind and generous set of remarks. I'm very humbled and honored to receive this award, and it's especially meaningful to me because SCRA, Society for Community Research and Action, is my professional home. So I consider all of you, part of my family. So this is a lovely honor. So I am going to focus on, I've done sort of a lot of different branches of research over my career, and I'm focusing mostly on this thread that Chris mostly talked about. I also wanted to thank SCRA for the award, the awards committee, and Chris. So thank you. Since I began my research, I really have focused on schools. All of it's been in schools. And I really have valued sort of being in schools. They are complex microcosms of society. It is one of the central socialization places for children and youth. And violence and aggression, you know, as they are pretty significant problems in our society and in our world, they are also pretty significant issues in schools. And they certainly affect the learning environment for the students, the work environment for the adult stakeholders, which, you know, has had much less attention. We've primarily focused on the kids, which is very important, but not the only piece of the puzzle. And also are a wonderful place to interface with parents and community. They have an expansive reach because schools are everywhere, and they can be a vehicle for social change. So some guiding directions in my own research are to, you know, sort of expand our ecological focus, to assess and intervene with multiple stakeholders at multiple levels using mixed methods, to improve school climate and reduce violence, considering the individual and systems level, also improving educator and administrator training, and to collaborate to affect social change. And this can be through, oops, sorry. This microphone is right in front of my slide, so I'm gonna just see if I can move that. All right. It's very graceful, right? Okay. All right. So, and part of this really involves partnering to promote policy change and improving access to both research and to interventions. So, ecological models, we love them. There are many ways to represent them. This is just one way. It doesn't have all of the pieces, but just to have school as a focal point, individuals are nested within classrooms, nested within schools, nested within communities, nested, you know, sort of, and affected by the policy, of course, bi-directional influences, and something that I think about sort of as I engage in my work. So, as I mentioned, violence is a public health issue. It's a significant issue globally. People around the world, it's not just people in the US now that are looking at it. I'm kind of getting requests pretty consistently from other places asking if they can use our scales or, you know, sort of developing context. And it is, and unfortunately, pretty consistently a problem in many places. Certainly, there are poor educator outcomes and student outcomes. It affects retention, satisfaction, achievement, mental and behavioral health. And educator perspectives and experiences have often not been included. Initially, there were few studies that incorporated teachers and other educators, and the studies that did exist relied on principal reports, which is problematic for lots of reasons. And so the first approach was to expand that focus. So here's a timeline of the work of this APA task force and my involvement. I started this work in 2008. Prior to that, I had been doing violence prevention programs with urban African American and Latina youth, and working with teachers and training doctoral students and doing sort of that intervention work. In 2008, APA was sort of interested in they were getting some inquiries, and they were interested in creating a task force on teacher-directed violence. And so this task force, we initially said, what's out there? And we found very little. And so we did a survey in 2010, and we learned a lot from that. And in 2019, actually, we were presenting on some findings from that study, and we were like, wow, it's been a while. It's probably different. So we should really look at this more. And then, you know, they all looked at me, and I said I would share it. So we did, and then we expanded our group, and then we sort of said, you know, how can we build on all the things that we've learned? And then we have conducted three large surveys, kind of across 4 time points. Our first survey in 2020, actually we were ready to launch in March of 2020, which of course we know what happened. We were all working with these national partners and ready to go, and then COVID. And so we stepped back, and that was not going to work. And we said, maybe we should build COVID into it. Maybe we should like try to learn about what's happening with COVID. And so then we were able to ask about pre-COVID and during COVID. And so, so that's kind of a summary of the task force timeline. So teacher-directed violence, I'm just going to say a few words about that and then kind of go into the more current things. We initially had the collaborations with the National Education Association, American Federation of Teachers. We did create and distribute resources to teachers as well. And then we surveyed about 3,400 teachers. So a few findings: violence and aggression were common, and this is violence against teachers. 80% of our sample had experienced some type of verbal or physical violence in the current or previous year. And this incorporate, like for example, verbal threats, 43% had experienced that, physical attacks, 29%. And then, you know, our study was kind of the first to also look at, well, who's this happening from? And, you know, a lot of it's happening from students, but actually 37% of the teachers reported violence and aggression from parents, 21% from colleagues. So historically, violence in schools has not really been thought about as a workplace environment, but is happening, and there's all kinds of things. So really the entire ecology of the school is important. We found detrimental effects in many ways, also retention issues, school level, whether you're at, you know, sort of elementary, middle, high school, those are important, urbanicity, rural, urban, suburban, these things matter. One of the things we found there was that the lack of administrative support was a significant issue, and we actually ended up categorizing it as a type of violence experienced by teachers because in their open-ended comments, they were really traumatized by it. They'd say this thing happened, but what was even worse was my principal didn't support me, they didn't believe me, they blamed me, it was sort of further traumatizing to them. These qualitative responses that we asked, you know, yielded many insights, and so I think that mixture was really, really helpful. This was one example of that we, you know, that actually came out of the qualitative research, the qualitative questions where we were looking at weapons frameworks. So one of the things we did in this study too was we were looking at physical violence, not just, you know, people think about gun violence, but it's not just guns, it's, you know, and it's not just, you know, physical attacks, but it's also like, you know, transforming objects into weapons. So you could pick up a rock and throw it at somebody, that becomes a weapon, a weaponized object. Or you could use a pair of scissors you get on somebody's desk and, you know, so there's a lot of things going on. So not just looking at the sort of the most rare kinds of things, but also the everyday kinds of things, and sort of thinking about individual, school, peer, family, and community, how that contributes to what, you know, what's going on in terms of the aggressor, and then the type, the origin, availability, and then carrying, threat, and weapon use. As sort of thinking about weapon behavior on more of a continuum. So onto the new task force. This was kind of a follow-up 10 years later. Instead of just teachers, we included all adult stakeholders. So this included teachers, school psychologists, social workers, counselors, administrators, and other school staff. We did a national online survey. Instead of just, did you experience violence, we sort of said, you know, how often, you know, was it once a month, you know, daily? And we also looked more at school climate, more at their safety concerns and training needs, and more at recommendations. So this is a picture of the task force collaborators. As Chris mentioned, there are many institutions, wonderful group of people. APA has been really a great partner in this work, and many graduate students across all of these institutions, and some of my graduate students are right there and very involved in working on this, and I certainly would not be here without the students. So, and our partners, which you can see, we had lots of partners, and this enabled us to do a lot by partnering with others. So initially, just a shorthand methods around we initially stratified by region because we really wanted to get the whole country, school level, sort of elementary, middle, high school, urbanicity, and role. And then we were focused on pre-K through 12th grade, distributed through email, but also our national partners, 3 surveys, 4 time points, 2020 to 2023, and about 35,000 participants. And I'm going to just show you briefly the demographics here. We prioritize teachers because there's so many teachers. So we purposely have more of those. You can see here, the first sample was close to 15,000. And about, and the second sample was 11,755. It was 76 to 81% female, 72 to 77% white. And then at time 3, we had 10,340 and similar kinds of demographics. These actually do kind of map onto the national demographics for schools. So this is just a map of, this is like time 1, just teachers, but you can see like just kind of the distribution, and this shows some of the different roles just within. So each category, of course, has multiple categories within it. So this included specialists, general education teachers, special education, and other teaching roles. Okay, so what did we find? So this has kind of those 4 data points, and the burgundy is pre-COVID. So the pre-COVID and during COVID, we asked that at the same time, but we were asking teachers, we were asking everyone to reflect what about before COVID, and then what about kind of now during COVID. So, and then you can see the yellow is after COVID, which was in 2022, and then the green is in 2023. So, and this is overall, so this includes verbal and physical and property kinds of victimization. And this is at least once in kind of that time period of like, around the academic year. And so we had that similar number as we did in our 2010 survey, with about 80% of experiencing at least some type. That was pre-COVID. And then it dipped during COVID, and this makes a lot of sense. And a lot of schools were online or remote or had hybrid kinds of settings. And so we see a pattern throughout where it kind of went down during COVID. And then it bumps up to either, sort of pre-COVID levels or higher, especially for teachers. And, in 2023, you can see these rates are pretty high. So it's definitely a problem that is widespread. This is just showing it in a different way and kind of showing that the red is the teachers, and they have different roles, and it's kind of showing that this is verbal and threatening aggression, and it showing that it's kind of the worst for teachers in terms of the time points. So it kind of was high, went down, and it was worse. It sort of went back up for all the roles, but it sort of is worse for teachers, and the same thing happened for physical violence. So now I'm just going to just show you teacher, because there's way too much data to show you everything. I'm just trying to give you, so now to look at teachers specifically, and then the different aggressors. So we have student aggressors in that first set of bars, and then parent aggressors, colleague aggressors, and then administrator aggressors. And then we sort of have those 4 time points with each one. And then you can see, so with the students, initially pre-COVID, 65% of our teachers experienced verbal and threatening. Now this victimization, this could be like verbal threats, intimidation, sexual harassment, these kinds of things. And then dip down, and then up to 80%, and then 77%. From parents, you can see the rates are, pretty high, 53 to 63%. Colleagues also pretty notable, and then administrators being also aggressors against teachers. So as a workplace, the entire ecology is important, and we can't just focus on students. So students are very key players, but not the only piece. So with physical, it looks pretty different here. So the students are much, much more engaged in physical aggression. And again, we included like sort of like physical attacks, but also objects weaponized or like objects thrown kind of thing. So it wasn't, we're not talking about weapon violence here necessarily. So we have, again, sort of the 42% pre-COVID, 49%, in our most recent survey. And we had a real bump up, you can see, in the parent, colleague, and administrator, after COVID restrictions were kind of lifted in 22, and then it has popped back down. So that's a little bit of good news, but still, sort of some pretty concerning things in terms of physical victimization. So, we have a crisis here in terms of shortages with not enough staff and teachers in schools. This goes back to looking at all the different roles and transfers. So this is like people who want to or plan to quit or transfer. So the rates are pretty high. And again, now you can see it's not just teachers. It's also people in these other stakeholder roles. Teachers are kind of the highest, but pretty significant issues across the board. And then I threw in this is just a single item, but I find my work stressful. You can see it pops way up, sort of after COVID. It's pretty high during COVID, and people are pretty stressed in these settings. This came out of one of our papers, looking at a model to sort of say what's the process kind of going on. Verbal and threatening violence from all different aggressors did lead to anxiety and stress, which led to transfer intentions, quit intentions, and the same model actually fit the data in terms of physical violence. So, these are not surprising, but hadn't been really looked at in this way before. So we also asked about training needs, and we had about 18 training needs that we listed, and there are very high rates of responses that people need training. They want training. This 43 to 64% of all school stakeholders need training during and after COVID restrictions. And these are the ones that came up as the highest: trauma-informed practices, de-escalation strategies, threat assessment, restorative justice practices, behavior management, social-emotional learning approaches, working with diverse racial, ethnic, and cultural groups, and staff team building. So we need to be doing a lot more. So we had open-ended questions, and again, you can imagine with 35,000 people responding, we have a lot of qualitative data to look at. We thought it was a lot with the 3,400 from the first study. It took us a year per question to look at it, to develop a coding manual and in vivo and get the reliability and all of that. And anyway, so it's super fruitful though. We asked about experiences with violence, the biggest safety issues in their schools, their concerns and recommendations, and then policies, procedures, interventions, and resources needed to address violence. And then we identified some key themes across all stakeholders and within each stakeholder. I'm just going to give you, there's 6 themes I'm going to present just with one quote each. There's lots and lots of data, as I mentioned, but aggression and violence. I've been physically assaulted multiple times by students in the building, and they know that not only is there no one to stop them, but there will be no consequences either. I ended up in the hospital the last time it happened. Physical and mental well-being, the ever-increasing stress of this profession is taking the worst toll. Because the positives of this job no longer outweigh the negatives, I will not make it to my full pension. Education and student support, this is why people get into this field. The process to identify students for special education or behavioral supports must be streamlined. It currently takes an average of 8 months for a violent or disruptive student to receive additional support services or be moved to a more appropriate setting. So, policies, we need policies, procedures, and interventions to identify, address, and respond to student behaviors that lie outside the management capabilities of K through 1 education in the general education program. That's just a K through 1 person's quote. So it's happening at the very young ages. Resources, if states don't provide some sort of incentive, we will not have enough teachers to run the schools in our country. This was already a problem and now it's worse. Community and societal concerns. Given proper resources, we could gain insight from all of our communities to identify their needs and coordinate with community services and supports to mitigate those needs. So I just wanted to mention a little bit about this congressional briefing that we did in 2022. So after we collected data, we said we're not going to write any papers until we focus on policy first. It's a group that's very concerned about policy, and so it took us about 8 months to sort of gather the data together, kind of write the policy briefs, and the policy brief and the technical report, coordinate with APA, the media staff, the policy. This is, again, sort of one place where I know there's always sort of questions about how do we work with APA, how can we sort of maximize the messaging, and how can we be partners with them. And this they enabled us to do this. And it was really, there's a lot of great people who are involved in policy. I think if we become partners with them, we can accomplish a lot. So we had, you can watch it online, actually, if you're interested. It's about an hour. And we had a senator, representative, we had the APA president, senior director. The data presentation was about 10 minutes of it. That was me. And then we had speakers. We had like a bus driver, a teacher, a school psychologist, and a social worker who was an administrator. And they kind of shared, each piece is like, just a few minutes. So was, I think, really impactful. That's, and we were going for 4 sets of different specific legislation that, again, APA helped us identify to sort of become part of the legislative, like, advocacy piece. And so one was grow and diversify the workforce, and there were specific acts within that, the Save Education Job Act, Education for America Act, and then another one was create pathways to support mental and behavioral health needs of students and educators. And those, those were sort of ongoing advocacy efforts. These 2 sets, funding educator training programs and funding school-based mental health programs, actually, we made really big strides in getting quite a bit of extra funding for this. The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, $2.3 billion over 5 years for these 3 programs. So, our policy person said that our data really contributed to other, lots of great work is going on, but it contributed to some of this movement forward on policy. And this is what Chris mentioned at the beginning, estimated, so articles, estimated reach. The impressions is actually, each article, like if you have readership that might overlap, right? So that's where it's like they're not maybe all unique, but when you sort of it's each readership place has that many, and then when you add them all up, it's 749 million. They estimated that it would have cost $19 million to have the kind of press that we had with this, and we, really did this on a shoestring budget. So a few key takeaways: collaborating with national partners. We really brought in our partners at the very beginning, and of course, they were completely different people than with the original task force, so we had to start all over. So this was, there was probably a year and a half before anything happened, because we were going to them, we were talking about what they wanted to learn, we were working on surveys, we were getting their input, we were going back and forth, and so that was happening from the very beginning. There were, of course, many shared priorities, yet there were some differences even in how to present it, and so a lot of ongoing discussion. We really worked very closely with all the partners. We're still working closely with the partners. One of my students, Taylor Swinsky, she's actually, just did a policy brief with related to administrator-directed violence and working with national organizations around that. There's going to be some press around that. Anyways, it's exciting. As I mentioned, APA has been very supportive for the collaboration, the policy, and the media. And I think with collaborating with some of these partners really has a greater potential to affect policy and practice. We also prioritize policy, as I said. I think it's a different skill set that I think we often don't teach in our training programs. I think we should do more of. The timeline can be quick and influenced by congressional activities. We were, the date of figuring out when are they in session, what's going to be the most impactful, what bills are coming up when, and so there was a lot of planning around that. Focusing on simple, powerful messages. We know they do not read our journal articles. So we need to do things that are, and then get it in front of them. The frontline speakers to share their stories. I mean, that helps generate a lot of interest, and then, I think you can have extensive reach and impact. So here's a few research practice and policy solutions: improving educator, staff, and leadership training. This is pre-service. This is at our universities. We need to do a much better job. We're way too focused on, the curriculum is important. That's what they're there to do. But if there's behavioral issues and mental health issues in the classroom, and it's getting in the way of actually doing what they need to do, and people feel underprepared for dealing with those kinds of things. So pre-service and in-service training, supporting personnel and student mental health and well-being, assessing school violence context and effective strategies, developing violence prevention interventions, including all stakeholders, providing appropriate resources, improving discipline, positive school climate and support, and engaging Congress through relevant data, support for policies, and frontline experiences. I also wanted to just say we have a website here for the task force. If you Google APA Task Force on Violence Against Educators and School Personnel, you will come up with that. Here's a QR code in case you're interested. You know, the American Psychologist article is open access. You can download that. There's a lot of, it's actually, we're waiting on some updates, as you know, often true. There's, but we also have some links to the media. We have some practical solutions. We have our policy stuff there, and it's always sort of a work in progress because things move a little slower than we want to. But there are a lot of resources there. And just to thank all of our partners, all the many DePaul students, the many students at all the other universities that are very engaged and working on this, the teachers, administrators, and all the other staff who completed the surveys. And I hope you have learned something about this topic, and I want to thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Susan. Congratulations. It's such an honor to be able to be a part of presenting these awards to such enormous influences in the field. And I remember being in one of those early, well, maybe not so early now that I see the timeline, but one of the earlier sessions when I was still a teacher in the classroom. I was able to see you talk about this, and it was so validating to see someone studying it, listening, and knowing what was happening. And so I thank you from that perspective, and I honor you from this one. Thank you so much. Additionally, I want to note before we move on to the next segment that the awards process takes a little bit of work. So I get to be the chair for another minute or two of the awards committee, but none of what we've been able to accomplish as a team would be possible. First, I want to say thank you to a few folks. First, I want to say thank you to Yadviga Hescox. So much of what she does goes unseen. It's ridiculous how organized she is, how she gets things done in a pinch and also over the long term. Never scolds, never gets angry when the ball is dropped hard. She just picks it up and says, let's go. And so for that, she does that in so many spaces in this organization that I just wanted to take a moment and acknowledge her. Not only does she do that all the time, but this year she did it while she was finishing her dissertation. And it was amazing. And so thank you. You're seen, and I just want to say thank you, along with Amber Kelly, who has been a big part of this process, of course, and also her work goes unseen often. So thank you to you, Amber, as well. Finally, this year, I want to say thank you to Ted Boback, who has joined the team and is taking over as the awards chair this year. So as soon as I found out that he was the person that I'd get to work with, I was super excited. And so I want to turn it over to Ted, who is stepping into this role and who will be presenting the next awards for our 20th biennial.
I'm short, so I'm going to put this down a little bit. And so I was super grateful to be nominated to serve because I've been in SCRA since I was an undergrad, and I was nervous. I didn't know what this job entailed. I had to talk to Dr. Mingo several times, right? And she's like, well, you just have to read bio sketches, right? So I applied to graduate school. Dr. Jason took me in. 5 years later, I got a postdoc, and then 2 years at the University of Washington, and I think I'm ready to read a bio sketch. We'll see. I'm gonna try not to let you all down, okay? So I think I press down, right, and then we go. All right. So the award for distinguished contribution to practice in community psychology. This year it goes to George Ayala, who is a clinical and community psychologist by training with more than 30 years of experience working in various nonprofit organizations and government settings. He is the deputy director of the Alameda County Public Health Department. Dr. Ayala is a systems thinker who understands community psychology's potential as a platform for advancing social justice. He has led multiple strategic population health and community planning processes, served as principal investigator on research studies, and conducted HIV and sexual health advocacy at national and global levels. He is the co-author of Breaking Barriers, Sexual and Gender Minority-Led Advocacy in Africa and the Caribbean, published in 2024 by Oxford University Press. Help me welcome George.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm not George. George tried to get here last night. The weather turned his plane around, and again this morning. So he is sadly on his way back to California. He asked that I say a few words on his behalf. Excuse me. This award means more to me than you can know. John Califat, was a family friend of mine, for whose contributions this award was founded, was one of my professors at Rutgers University, where I studied. As a community psychologist, Dr. Califat's work resonated strongly for me and opened professional pathways I did not think were possible for psychologists. I carried the lessons I learned from him throughout my career in New York City and in settings such as Impact Global Action for Gay Men's Health and Rights, which I had the privilege to lead as its first executive director for 12 years. The kind of work Impact championed is described in a book Dr. Robin Miller, that's me, and I wrote recently published, titled Breaking Barriers, Sexual and Gender-Led Advocacy to End AIDS in Africa and the Caribbean. Breaking Barriers stands as an important record of human perseverance and resilience. The book gives voice to frontline human rights defenders who place their lives on the line every day to ensure health equity for their communities. Community psychology, as an engaged, participatory practice, gave us the tools to reveal and to disrupt state-sponsored structural violence directed at queer and trans communities in 7 countries across sub-Saharan Africa and the Caribbean. For this, I am grateful. I'd like to thank my dear friend Robin Miller, who, like Dr. Califat, inspires me to get into some good trouble. I'd like to also acknowledge my family for their unwavering love and support. And last but not least, I'd like to thank the love of my life, Tree Doe. Dr. Doe, thank you for holding me. The past 22 years were a blessing. I'd like to dedicate this award to LGBTQ rights activists worldwide for teaching me, guiding me, and inspiring me. You work tirelessly, often without fanfare, but you press on. I see you, I value you. You are much needed light in the world. Thank you.
Thank you for that. The next award is to Rhonda Lewis for Outstanding Contributions for Mentorship in Racial Justice Award. Rhonda K. Lewis, PhD and MPH, is a professor, graduate coordinator, and community psychology PhD coordinator in the psychology department at Wichita State University. She received her PhD in developmental and child psychology from the University of Kansas and her Master of Public Health from the University of Kansas School of Medicine. She is the director of the Behavioral Community Research and Action Team, BCRAT, at WSU, where she mentors undergraduate and graduate students. She is the principal investigator of Keeping ICT Safe, a grant funded by SAMHSA. She is a service learning faculty fellow and a culturally responsive evaluation expert. She is a community engaged researcher who investigates educational inequities, health equity, positive youth development, mental health, substance use prevention, and health promotion in the community. She is a member of the Society for Community Research and Action for Division 27 of APA, is a SCRA Division 27 Fellow, is a member of the Association of Black Psychologists, is a member of the American Evaluation Association, and is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Help me welcome Rhonda Lewis. If anybody takes a picture.
Someone's gonna take a picture?
And, yeah, I hope I didn't mess any of that up.
I don't have to say anything, do I? Thank you. I love you. My mom is here. Thank you all. I love you. This is my home. I love you. SCRA, you're the best.
All right, put me right back to work. Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Okay, the next award is for Outstanding Educator. It's for Catherine Stein. Catherine Stein has advanced education research and action as a community psychologist and professor in the psychology department at Bowling Green State University for over 38 years. In her work, Kathy has guided students in their research, developed and supervised community-based initiatives, and taught the vast majority of community courses within the clinical psychology doctoral program. Stein views the classroom as a collaborative social setting where students can recognize and confront implicit norms and expectations about power, responsibility, and voice that can translate outside of the classroom. She is an ardent believer in learning by doing and design settings that engage students as active participants to help foster positive systems change. Kathy also shares her passion for research with her students. Kathy conducts rigorous and innovative studies of social, organizational, and institutional factors that impact adults coping with serious mental health conditions and their families. She actively engages with her research students to help them to translate their ideas into interesting and meaningful research studies. Individuals who work with Kathy go on to have exciting careers in both applied and academic settings. Kathy has shaped academic generations of students who then continue to share core community psychology values of advocacy, social justice, activism, empowerment, and humility in their own work. A native of Philadelphia, Kathy Stein also has brought any number of idiosyncratic expressions and pithy maxims to her students, colleagues, and the people of Northwest Ohio. Let's hear it for Kath.
Thank you all very much. First, I'd like to let you know how much this award means to me. I'd like to thank the awards committee for an outstanding job. I've had the good fortune to work with students at Bowling Green State University for the past 100 years. well, maybe not 100 years. In that time, I've shared my love of community psychology frameworks, methods, research, and action, but mostly community psychology values. I think that one of the beautiful things about our discipline is that it gives students a language to translate their passions and their strengths to do good. Each day, I learn much more than I know. And I am very grateful for my job. It keeps me young, young at heart. And it keeps me incredibly optimistic about the future of community psychology and community psychologists to do great things in our world. Thank you.
Okay, the next award is for Community Psychology Dissertation of the Year. And it goes to, oh, I apologize, but I had the name earlier. I think it's Jalea Rutledge. I'm hoping I got that right. So I think I got the name right, or it was close enough? All right, thank you. Okay. So Dr. Jalea Rutledge, she, her, is a T32 postdoctoral fellow in the Yale AIDS Prevention Training Program at the Yale University Center for Interdisciplinary Research on AIDS. Dr. Rutledge obtained her PhD in ecological community psychology from Michigan State University. She is also a proud alum of Tuskegee University, where she earned a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and a Bachelor of Arts in Communications. Her program of research focuses on racial health disparities, health equity, and health promotion among marginalized populations. More specifically, she is interested in understanding and utilizing strengths-based approaches from the promotion and protection of Black women's sexual and reproductive health. Her long-term goal is to maintain a program of research that not only deepens understanding of health inequities, but also informs interventions that center the resilience, agency, joy, and strength of Black women and girls. Help me welcome Jalea.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited, and thank you so much to the awards committee for recognizing me in this way. It truly means a lot. Fun fact, I actually defended my dissertation 2 years ago on Juneteenth, so to be recognized for this work that centers Black women on a day that represents liberation, freedom, and resilience just feels so divinely aligned. As a proud Black American woman who does work, like my bio read, that centers Black women and works to promote their sexual and reproductive health, I don't take this award or this moment lightly. I carry it with deep pride and purpose. This award isn't just for me. It's for the women in my dissertation who so gracefully shared their stories with me, as well as the women and girls that I'll continue to advocate and work with, and my ancestors who dreamed of this moment long before I could. So many people I could thank, but I want to be mindful of time, and I want to thank some folks in the room, my dissertation chair and advisor, Dr. Robin Lynn Miller, for just being so supportive and encouraging and pushing me to produce this type of work. I'd also like to thank my mentor, Dr. Renee Kennedy. While I was writing my dissertation, y'all, I would go to her house in her sunroom and try to get what little sunlight I could in Michigan and write my dissertation. She would keep me fed and have my nice teas, so I really appreciate that. And then my cohort sister, Jessica, I love you. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Happy Juneteenth.
All right, the next award is for Excellence in Education Programs, and it goes to Pacific Oaks College, BA Community Psychology. Am I supposed, I think that's all it says. I don't, that's it? All right, come on up.
I'm excited. I just am deeply, I'm excited. I'm honored to receive this award on behalf of Pacific Oaks College and our undergraduate community psychology program there. It's been a work in progress. Many of you know my story and how I became to be the department chair just recently, a few months ago. So I just wanted to thank SCRA and the awards committee for the award. I'm just grateful to be a part of a community that uplifts equity, innovation, and transformative power of education. I also wanted to thank some of the interest groups that I'm a part of, especially the undergraduate interest group, as well as Ola Glansman, who has been kind of like a mentor, you know, as I, it's just emotional, have just transformed as a faculty, as a leader in community psych at Pacific Oaks College. And Ola also was on my committee for my dissertation, in which I talked about reflective practices using photo voice as a tool for self-reflection in community psychology. So thank you again, and I'm so honored.
All right. The next award is the Don Klein Publication Award to Advance Community Psychology Practice, and it goes to the Cambridge Handbook of Community Empowerment.
Thanks. So I'm really collecting this on behalf of the 60 plus, I believe, contributors to this handbook. So I now have the new challenge of how to split a cash prize or figure out what to do collectively with a cash prize among that large group. But it was really a fascinating and gratifying experience to edit this handbook, to work and engage with the work of scholars whose work I really admire, who are doing work to build community power and to find the commonalities and differences across all of these different models and approaches and settings. So I hope this award will help to bring new participants to that conversation. Thanks.
For our final award tonight, I have the privilege of introducing the recipient of the Saracen Award. That's a big one. It's a big one. I'm gonna say, coming into the field, as a woman, I wasn't quite sure how I was gonna fit in, what it meant, what the opportunities were. I graduated from UIC, and when I first met Yolanda, and heard her speak, I was able to see and hear so much of what was possible. So much of what was possible from a woman of color. And it was exciting to me in a number of ways. So I just wanted to share that, and I'm ready to introduce this person who's been very influential for me, and I wanted to thank you. You probably don't even know it, but you have been. Dr. Yolanda Suarez Balcazar was born in Colombia, one of 12, right in the middle, and has found her way to us here. Dr. Suarez Balcazar is a professor in the Department of Occupational Therapy and Disability and Human Development at the University of Illinois in Chicago. She trained as a community psychologist at the University of Kansas, KU. Dr. Suarez Balcazar embraces a community-based participatory research approach. She has been a principal investigator, co-PI, and co-investigator on several research projects funded by the National Institute of Disability, Independent Living and Rehabilitation Research, and the Office of Minority Health, and private foundations like the Chicago Community Trust. Her research focuses on the nexus between race, health, and disability, with particular attention to marginalized communities of people with disabilities and their families. She is currently a co-PI on a large federal research grant studying the social determinants of health impacting the health and well-being of Latinx families and youth with disabilities and designing culturally tailored intervention. Among her unique contributions to community-engaged research, she and her colleagues developed a novel community-engaged asset mapping methodology with the Latinx community, the creation of the model for the development of university community partnerships, and the creation of a framework for developing culturally tailored interventions, which resulted in the design of families saludables? Am I saying it right? What does that say? I'm not gonna say it wrong. She's gonna say it better too with her accent. What does that say?
Oh, familias saludables, healthy families.
Familias saludables. You ain't gonna catch me saying these beautiful words wrong. Saludables and familiar interventions designed to promote the health and well-being of Latinx families of youth with disabilities. She is a fellow of the American Psychological Association and a fellow of SCRA. She is the recipient of several awards, including the 2021 Distinguished Alum Award, Department of Applied Behavioral Sciences at KU, and the University of Illinois Scholar Award in 2022, among, I'm so sure, many, many others. It is my great honor and privilege to announce our Saracen Community Research and Action Award to Yolanda Suarez Balcazar. I'm not gonna bend down. Judah told me to stand
Should
up.
I go like this?
Let's come over here. I'll bend down.
Oops. Thank you, SCRA, for this award. I feel very, very honored. Today, I'm going to be talking about promoting caring communities through collective action. The role of community psychology, what is it? Oops. The role of community psychology is more relevant today than ever before, given the current political climate, like we have heard, how it's impacting everyone, directly or indirectly, all of us in this room. As we celebrate the 20th SCRA biennial and reflect on the conference theme, we aim to reach new heights, even in these challenging times. The challenges we're facing as a country are impacting issues we care deeply about: sense of community and belonging, disparities in health and well-being, social and economic inequality, exclusion, and displacement, among others. The depth and breadth of these inequalities is becoming strictly evident as we've been hearing throughout this conference. They are exacerbated by attacks on DEI, higher education, science, the migrant community, and many other groups that have experienced marginalization. Basically, if we think about it, our core values and principles as community psychologists and practitioners are under attack. The times call for promoting caring communities through collective action. In caring communities, we feel connected, experience a sense of belonging and a sense of community, like Saracen talked about, and deeply care for each other's health and well-being. To be clear, the individual practice of caring, people looking out for each other, is still widespread in our communities. However, the present adverse conditions for caring, including pronouncements that them and the other are not worthy of themselves, of compassion, limits the practice in today's world. The title of the biennial plenary meeting, The Moment, Community Psychology in the Current Political and Economic Landscape, remind us that the principles and values we care deeply about are currently trapped in a divisive political populist discourse. Unfortunately, the discourse of us and them and the other are gaining popularity, as shown during the last few events nationally and globally. This language of division promotes exclusion, further marginalization of groups that have experienced oppression, including the migrant community, LGBT community, people of color, people with disabilities, and other groups. The current discourse, instead of creating caring communities, is reinforcing the concept of us and them, or us and the other. And that is perpetuating, as we've seen it, hate, racism, sexism, xenophobia, ableism, and other exclusions. Let's go back to Saracen. In 1974, Saracen wrote, in the psychological sense of community, the one thing we can be certain about is that in our society, the absence or delusion or psychological sense of community is the most destructive dynamic in the lives of people in our communities. Unfortunately, the current rhetoric is trying to delude, divide us, and in some cases destroy our sense of community. Dominant discourses have reinforced a narrow and exclusive sense of community, separating individuals by migration status, gender preferences, race, ethnicity, ableism, and other characteristics. Unfortunately, these are real social maladies behind these positions, reinforcing a sense of this exclusive belonging. Given the current climate, transcending into caring communities and engaging in the power of collective action is much needed. As community researchers and practitioners, we can help disrupt this current discourse by engaging in community research and action that promotes caring communities and collective action. So let me share my personal background and early introduction to caring communities. My early exposure to caring communities started at an early age, growing up in Bogota, Colombia, in a large, close-knit family of 11 siblings. At an early age, we learn to care deeply for the health and well-being of each other and those around us, many of them children living in the streets of Bogota, low-income children, and low-income families. Just to share one example of several of how do we build caring communities, on one occasion, some of our efforts as a family turned into demonstrations of collective action. When my parents heard that a small rural village in the mountains of mountains on the outskirts of Bogota had recently built a small school facility, but had not hired teachers for months, while the kids anxiously awaited the opening of the school, they decided to take action. Influenced by liberation theology, Per Gutierrez, the core idea of liberation theology is preferential option for the poor. The main message, heaven, here and now. My parents quickly trained the troop of kids to become teachers. I need to clarify that my parents were not trained as teachers themselves. On weekends, we became teachers. My mother, the principal, and the lead teacher, my dad, the administrator. And we kept the school open for a few months, but only on weekends, and we were still students ourselves. Soon enough, local families were organized around the school into a caring community, supporting and caring for one another. We then went to the city hall with over 30 families with signs and speeches to advocate for hiring teachers. After a few days of advocacy, the school officially opened, and it was no longer run by 12 and 17-year-old teachers volunteered by their parents. In the early 80s, I was fortunate to join Steve Fawcett's research group at the University of Kansas to pursue graduate school. Steve introduced me to several community research and action initiatives in which caring communities and the power of collective action were abundant. For instance, in one of our projects, we collaborated with the disability community to implement a participatory community needs assessment methodology that we have all collaboratively developed called the Concerns Before Method, to identify concerns, develop action plan, and engage in action and advocacy around accessibility issues. So, how do caring communities look like? What can caring communities in those settings promote? How do we do that? How can such a care-promoting setting be created? The art and practice of caring communities may have been anticipated by Saracen in 1974, when he introduced the notion of social change as the creation of settings. Caring communities are thriving environments in which members are there for one another. This is my Latino collaborators from the community. They provide support when experiencing challenges, identify issues, take action on what matters to them, and celebrate achievements. Caring communities are centered around shared values, mutual support, appreciation of similarities, and acceptance of difference. They enable meaningful participation of its members, embrace dignity and respect, enable co-creation, promote DEI, liberation, co-empowerment, and occupational justice, among other things. Caring communities are social environments where people deeply engage with one another, fostering, as Sarah So would say, sense of community and sense of belonging, which are, as Sarah So said, fundamental to our identity and well-being. In caring communities, individuals prioritize each other's mental and physical health, promoting a culture of support, compassion, mutuality. According to John Powell, in caring communities, everyone is welcome and cared for regardless of their circumstances, beliefs, race, ethnicity, or unique ways of engaging with the world. In caring communities, when confronted with harm, people protect each other, come together, and often transcend to the power of collective action. The concept of caring communities is prominent in community development, an approach where community members work together to address significant community challenges and goals while caring for one another. In caring communities, it is the collective that makes us thrive. These principles are not new. They go back to early indigenous and native communities' ways of living and are at the core of several non-Western cultures worldwide. In fact, in caring communities and the power of the power of the collective is a way of living for many communities. For instance, in Latin America, these values are passed from generation to generation, just like my family did. Vast literature in community psychology has illustrated the impact of sense of community and belonging, and in many ways illustrates Sarah's notion of social change as the creation of settings. Many of the examples community research and action work share at the last 20 biennials over the last 36 years have been about fostering and sustaining caring communities. We just don't call it as such. Developing caring communities give us a sense of shared identity, help us feel connected and acknowledged, and as part of something bigger than ourselves, builds our common values and appreciation for differences. Intentional efforts to create caring communities require a commitment to social justice. And we've heard quite a bit about that throughout the biennial. Caring communities and the power of collective action can promote justice by deconstructing systemic injustices affecting the larger community. What would care-inducing settings look like? How can caring communities be created and fostered? Caring communities can gain power through collective action, yet power without compassion and power without care leads to domination, authoritarianism, oppression, fosters mistrust and resistance and fear, just like we see it today in the country. In this figure, I proposed a framework of caring communities in which caring is not just a function of the communities, but constitutes the essence of their identity. Caring is at the core which the community revolves. Key dimensions for care-inducing settings include mutual aid, building on strengths and assets, and opportunities for engagement and shared power. These dimensions are catalysts for creating caring communities. Together, these dimensions lead to a sense of community and belonging, caring practices and advocacy, voice, influence, and meaningful participation in society. Numerous examples exist in the community psychology literature. Many of you have contributed to that. We just don't refer to it as caring communities. Just a couple of examples include the Latino migrant families often form transnational networks in which caring for each one is the backbone of the community experience. Some of the work that Adames and Chavez and some of the work that some of you have published, including our work as well. Another example is the Roma population, a group that has marginalized by different societies worldwide, has managed to establish solid families and community networks, engage in action, and strengthen resiliency, cultural identity, and act as part of the collective, as documented by Manuel Garcia Ramirez and his colleagues, community psychologists at the University of Seville. Native indigenous communities have created forms of citizenship based on a deep attachment and caring for the environment and for one another, conceiving the caring of the land as a form of community, as stated by some of the work of Gillian Joseph, Thompson Green, and O'Keefe, and others. Lenny Jason's work and his colleagues with Oxford House, whereby communities of healing engage successfully in community-based interventions and collective action. Another example is Joy Agner and her work with her colleagues in CPPR Clubhouse Project, promoting healing and sense of community, and so on. So there are quite a few examples. We just not necessarily call it caring communities. In short, our urgent task is to reinvent the sense of community and belonging in a world marked by complexity, uncertainty, and divisions, while facing global challenges that highlight our interdependence and mutuality, and include caring as the organizing principle of community life. An important issue to reflect is that although caring has traditionally been highlighted as a value by society across cultures, society has often assigned this recognition to the motherly image representation of kindness, love, dedication, and compassion. However, despite this admiration surrounding this caregiving function, it rarely translates into social, economic, or political power. If we genuinely want caring to be meaningful, socially significant, and influential, we must transform it into a source of recognition, power, and collective action. Anjali Dutt, a psychology of liberation scholar, in the article Towards a Liberatory Ethics of Care Framework for Organizing Social Change, offers a key point to rethinking care as a driver of social transformation, not just a one-on-one interaction, but the driver of social transformation. And that's what I want to invite everyone to think about, caring as the driver of social transformation. It helps us think about the concept of care justice as part of social justice. Caring communities must become spaces where the right to a dignified life is claimed, protected, and advocated. In all its forms, caring is valued and guaranteed by public policies promoting caring communities. Caring is transformed into an act of social and political participation, a fundamental piece of powerful collective action. So let me use some examples from my own work. on how we have advanced caring communities. Advancing social justice through caring communities in the current environment requires that we disrupt the status quo, engage in resistance and advocacy, and elevate the voices of diverse communities. A renewed social justice and caring justice approach that promotes caring communities and the power of collective or collectivity requires an emphasis on community engagement and CBPR, as many of you have contributed to that literature. Approaches CBPR, an approach to research that is underscores a strength-based and emancipatory process whereby the research and action components are driven by community concerns and carried out by researchers in partnership with communities, as highlighted throughout the pandemic. This involves, among other things, promoting critical dialogue, using Pablo Freire's framework, meaningful engagement of communities in the co-creation of knowledge. Since the first biennial in 1987 at the University of South Carolina, and the second one here, Michigan State, community researchers and practitioners have contributed significantly to the literature on social justice and DEI, as well as sense of community and belonging. Let's move into caring communities. Today we know that those advances are at risk. Today is our responsibility to continue moving forward. We can't reverse years of progress in promoting our values and principles. We need to transcend by promoting caring communities and the power of collective action. So let me illustrate with some examples some of the work that I do. A little bit of background about the population of my work during the last 25 years. Latin immigrant families or children with disabilities often face many challenges that impact their health and well-being and their ability to care for the families and a child with IDD. There's strong evidence indicating that their health and well-being as caregivers is low, and they often suffer from stress and depression and isolation at higher rates compared to non-Latin families and families without children with IDD. They also experience double discrimination, as we have demonstrated in some of our work. We also found that the impact of perceived discrimination on quality of life was mitigated by social support up to some point, and the stronger the support network, the higher the quality of life, even when facing discrimination up to some point. Furthermore, in separate focus groups we implemented with the Latinx community with disabilities, with parents and young adults and youth, we documented the lack of linguistic and culturally relevant health promotion and well-being programming. During the last 25 years, my students and I have developed a strong, mutually beneficial relationship and partnership with a number of community organizations serving the Latinx community in Chicago. After several successful funded research projects and action-oriented projects in collaboration with the community, we obtained funding from a private foundation to support the development of a culturally and linguistically relevant community health promotion program. This area has been identified, the lack of health promotion programs by agency and the community, and grounded in social ecological model and embracing a CBR approach, we co-created Healthy Families, Familias Saludables, we use Fawcett et al. Program development, intervention development framework, and collaborated with the community, having at the center the voices which included working groups composed of Latin immigrant mothers who were leaders in the community, local caregivers, staff, and so forth. The intervention was delivered on Saturday mornings at the agency and covered key components of evidence-based health promotion interventions. So let me illustrate mutual aid. Caring communities thrive on mutual support, where members uplift and assist each other, creating a strong network, trust, and collaboration. This interconnectedness fosters resiliency and well-being. Latin immigrant families or children with disabilities gather at the agency in large groups. Often we had 3 generations attended the sessions, and this all of a sudden became a space for families to create a caring community. Aligned with the values of Latinx communities, time was set aside for participants to exchange ideas and social learning. Families supported one another, exchanged resources, created a walking group, started a Zumba class, and became each other's support network. The social network, as well as the community network, kept growing and growing. In a way, collaboratively, they were creating a caring community in the tradition of Saracen. Let me illustrate the next component in the framework. Building on community strengths and assets. Through engagement in meaningful conversations, following Paulo Freire's model with the community, during our Healthy Families, Familias Saludables implementation, one of the issues that emerged from a discussion about resources was the need to identify resources, settings, and services in the community that serve the Latinx community with people with disabilities. We offered to conduct a community engaged asset mapping with the community enthusiastically endorsed. 2 mothers engaging as leaders in the community co-helped design all the protocol and asset mapping materials. 21 families participated in the asset mapping, 30 families in the open forum that followed to discuss the results, and later on, 40 families attended a town hall meeting with the state rep to share the results. Not surprising and consistent with scholarly evidence, a local church that offered a variety of programs targeting Latinx families and doctors who speak Spanish and were bilingual and sensitive to the needs of children with disabilities were identified as strengths. The caring community was evident as participants started to exchange ideas and offered to introduce each other, accompanied each other that were not familiar with the local health-based organization, introduce them, bring them with them. They exchanged information, they made plans, and attended various services offered at local church together. A few specific healthcare providers were also introduced to the community that didn't know about them. Families also alluded to the resiliency, never giving up attitude, and hard working ethics as strengths. Let me introduce the third component in the model, engagement in action and shared power. Active participation of the community in collective action was critical. This involved identifying issues they care about that align with their shared values and engaging in collective decision-making. The committee also began to bring issues to the group's attention that they were worried about. For instance, they suggested that we put together a resource directory because not everybody knew about their resources and those services that were bilingual and bicultural. At one point, the committee organized a meeting with a local state representative. The Latin families requested time during the public hearing to share their community assets and concerns with the state rep. We supported their efforts, and upon their request, provided there with an opportunity to practice the statement to be shared at the town hall meeting with the state reps. During the public meeting, our families stood up share the concerns. We stay in the back of the room and let them run the meeting with the state rep. A few parents took on the lead and felt so proud and empowered to speak on behalf of the Latinx community, and we were so proud of our families. Exercising the new sense of caring, the families brought a proposal to the group. They wanted to organize a walk during a health fair taking place in the community. One of the concerns they had identified early were cars speeding in the area and not following traffic signs. Worried that the youth with intellectual and developmental disabilities were not safe walking on their own in the community, they decided to optimize the local health fair as an opportunity to educate the community about the needs of people with disabilities. On the day of the fair, we met early on. We were there at 7 a.m., and the fair started at 11 to help the families create index cards to pass around and put together signs. And here we are participating with our families in the walk to educate the community about the needs of people with IDD. Again, our families were so proud of their engagement in community activities and demonstrated not only the caring community, but the shared collective power. So, sustaining caring communities. Planning for sustainability of healthy families involved training local leaders and mothers to become leaders to deliver the intervention, while we provided support as needed. The agency efforts to continue healthy families intervention were interrupted by COVID-19. However, we were fortunate to secure funding for NICLR to scale up the intervention and continue studying and reducing health disparities experienced by Latin families or children with disabilities. We co-designed Poder Familiar, which was funded by NICLR, and Poder in Spanish means power. The aim of Poder Familiar was to promote the health and well-being of Latin caregivers of children with disabilities. This study was an extension and culmination of several funded action-oriented studies in collaboration with the Latinx community. This sustained focus on people and communities living at the intersection of disability, ethnic minority status make a distinct and valuable contribution to the health equity agenda. Poder Familiar is a promotora deliver intervention, so we train our promotoras, our community health workers. Promotoras, there's a strong evidence in the literature of the power of community health workers in promoting the health and well-being of minoritized communities. Promotoras deliver the culturally tailored intervention in Zoom sessions supported by all of us, as well as families participated in group sessions. The Latina caregivers who have participated often share with us, the promotora helped me create a community of support and mutual aid I did not know existed. We completed a pilot and right now are wrapping up a randomized control trial. As we plan sustainability of our community partners, our community partners, local community grassroots organizations such as Grupo Salto and others are playing a critical role as they plan to offer the program to their participants. One such partner, a community advocacy and support group run by Latin parents of children with disability, has become a caring community for Latin immigrants. They capitalize on mutual aid, support, building on strengths and assets, and provide families an opportunity to engage in collective action and share power. In all, a sense of community belonging, caring practices, and advocacy have influenced active participation in the community as a result of being part of a caring community. So, to close, what do we do moving forward? I would like to share a couple of other strategies that we're working on as we speak. So, creating and maintaining care-inducing settings. Thinking about Saracen's contributions to support our communities being harmed by widespread, to support our communities, especially Latino communities being harmed, widespread caring is much needed, but collective caring and collective action. Throughout the last few months, our migrant communities have experienced fear, anguish, stress, given the current attacks on our migrant community, fear of detention, deportation, and family separation. Unfortunately, our Latin community, a community of hardworking individuals, is being dehumanized, attacked, and marginalized. To support many people around the country are joining rapid response teams. I joined a rapid response team in my community. The rapid response team is about supporting the migrant community and building a caring community and solidarity lines. We were trained on how to respond to. As trained members, we guard and patrol gatherings of migrant communities, like Spanish masses being conducted in Spanish, and other social gatherings. I only do it on weekends. The team is also active when a solidarity line is needed, such as when there is a need to protect a school or other community settings where the Latino community is gathering. As communicated by some of the attendees and ushers at this event, they feel that we care. We created a listing of not only agency and community resources, but also community assets that can be activated when a family is facing detention, deportation, or separation. Such assets include people in the community willing to provide emotional, spiritual, legal aid, help alleviate temporarily food or housing insecurity when a family is faced with deportation. Seeing the list of resources growing every weekend as I attend this event is very comforting. Another strategy that we tried is standing for JADA, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and the power of storytelling. The current climate is using oppressive tactics to silence diverse voices. Just as many of you have shared in different sessions in the last 2 days. Some institutions have quickly overcomplied, overreacted, and removed DI from the websites and campus initiatives. We continue our DI initiatives at UIC, following our chancellor's commitment not to overreact, not to overcomply. We continue our initiatives. In 2024, the end of 2024, I was awarded a competitive grant from UIC to advance racial justice. I spearheaded a team of faculty, graduate students, and community partners to develop a novel proposal titled Advancing Racial Just Equity Through Elevating Diverse Voices, and it's called the Art Voices Project. Fortunately, this project was not cut with all the new mandates. And what the project is about is pushing back the negative rhetoric about diverse communities, LGBTQ, people of color, people with disabilities, and migrant communities. We are, through storytelling and video recording these stories, we are highlighting the strength, the resiliency, the family, the spirituality, the advocacy. And many of them actually have a story of disability advocacy that they want to share. And many of them have said, wow, people want to hear all the strengths and all the good stuff that pushed me through hard times, whether disability or chronic conditions. Another strategy has been building on shared values. We have found on our campus and our classes that often students are divided. And often students, there's a lot of friction among students given the national and global events. One of the exercises that I do, and students seem to really enjoy it, is that we ask each student to write down their key values to illustrate the world they want to see. I ask students to share those key values with someone in the class that they have never spoken with or see as extremely different because of race, ethnicity, faith, religion, background, disability, gender identity, or other characteristics. And you know what? We have found that across the students are identifying kindness, compassion, giving, volunteerism, family, friendships, faith, respect, and dignity. And then we ask students to share how are they going to enact their values and take action to live their values and enact their values. And then 6 months later, we have to share how they are enacting the values. And the one thing that has come out across as they share is that because they were able to see that the student or the peer that they saw as being incredibly different happen to have exactly the same values: compassion, kindness, diversity. The last one I want to make reference to is collective action and advocacy, and that's something that many of you have mentioned throughout the conference. Substantial body of literature in community psychology has documented the power of engaging in advocacy. This is the time for us. Oops. I don't know what happened. I can't move it, but anyway. This is the time for us. Oops, no, wait a second. This is the time for us to engage in advocacy. Contact your legislature, state representative, write letters, sign petitions. See by Casa et al. And the community toolbox for examples of strategies for advocating and social change. Some of the current petitions that we have signed are about Medicare and SNAP being cut, an end to deportations, an expansion of, a cut in the expansion of detention centers, and advocate for immigrant justice. Talking about immigrant justice, I want to call your attention to the special issue that we just launched with Ashby Overroy and Sarah Buckingham and myself about advancing immigrant and refugee rights, promoting empowerment, justice, equity, and liberation. I will encourage you to scan it and remember that tomorrow is World Refugee Day. Millions and millions of people around the world are gathering to commemorate the rights and fight and advocate for the rights of refugees and immigrants. To close, the framework and examples shared here illustrate the impact of caring communities, collective action and shared power that can create lasting community change. Caring communities can optimize the power of collective action, and they have a liberating character, just as I saw it with our Latino community. A psychology of liberation has status, institutional, social, and dominant oppressive economic powers can be answered with the power that caring communities give us. Ability to organize, to care for each other, redefine community narratives, and dignify cultural traditions, as is shown in some of the examples and the work that many of you have shared during the last 2 days. And it's also an expansion of Saracens' sense of community and sense of belonging. Let's move to new heights by promoting caring communities. Engaging in community research and action, promoting the values that Saracen advanced for the field, and continuing the theme of many of SCRA biannuals since the first conference, and during these turbulent times, we're required to put into practice advocacy, activism, empowerment, and all of our principles to foster caring communities, to promote shared power, and engaging in collective action. But like many of you said earlier in different panels, this journey starts with us. We are all in this together. With love, compassion, and caring, and action, not hate, we can make the world great. Thank you, and I want to acknowledge a few people. So I want to acknowledge my family and Fabricio Balcazar, who you know, for his support, and all my children and their partners, my larger extended family, who's been an inspiration for community regional work, and there are about 25 people missing in that big picture. But also the Latinx community, my community partners that are here from El Valor and Grupo Salto, my advisor is Steve Fawcett, who introduced me to community research and action, my colleague and friend from the University of Seville, Department of Psychology, Manuel Garcia Ramirez, who nominated me for this award, and we shared so much in collaboration. Thank you, gracias.
Thank you all for attending the 2025 awards ceremony for the 20th biennial. Can we please give a round of applause for all of our awardees? What an inspiration, from our dissertation of the year to the Saracen Award and the whole scope of a career in between. It's an honor to have served in this role. It's an honor to have been here with all of you. Please enjoy the rest of the conference. I see Kwesi here. I don't know if we have any housekeeping.
This ain't got nothing to do with most of y'all. If you are Michigan State affiliated, meet over here so we can get a picture. That's it.
If I could also get the awardees, if there's any of you all left in here for one group photo, that would be super, super helpful for the website and celebrating you all there. Thank you. Have a wonderful day for the rest of you. Thank you for coming out.